It is Open Championship Week, and it is not just any Open. It is the 150th Open at St. Andrews, the home of golf. The club opened at the old course 470 years ago. Steven Andrus here for thelines.com, joined by The Lines golf writer John Hasselbauer. In this video, we are going to break down our first look at the odds for the Open, whether you call it the British Open or the Open. We are excited. It is the final major on the calendar for 2022. It is a perfect theater and a perfect stage for that final major of the year. John, just your opening thoughts here before we get started on just the stage that we are going to see for this, the huge anniversary. Tiger's going to be there at St. Andrews, the home of golf.
Yeah, you really couldn't script a better tournament to close out this season as the last major of the year. There's speculation that this could be the last tournament that all of the best players in the world all come to all together. Who knows what the state of the game is going to be by the 2023 Masters. If the, I don't know, Bryson DeChambeau's and Patrick Reed's a past champions, but those top ranked Taylor Gooch of the world as an example
is a past champion. But these other guys,
anybody who's not automatically qualified for the Masters, who needs to rely on the world golf rankings, they may not be in the field at the next major. And what we know about the majors is that it's a celebration of the best in the world are here. And if you win it, that means that you have beaten the best in the world. We know that that is going to be the case this week. Everybody besides Daniel Berger in the top 50 of the world is here. So it's a star-studded event on the most notorious golf venue in the world, one of the most fun ones to watch golf on, and one with some of the most storied history that there is. So it's just another reminder of how awesome the history of golf is and what legacy means in the sport, and just how many centuries of golf have been played on these grounds. It's going to be really awesome to watch these guys play this week.
Yeah, I am really lucky to say that I'm going to be in attendance for the third round of the Open on Saturday as I record this. This is the background for one of the airport lounges at JFK in New York City. I'm on my way to Manchester. Going to be doing some work there with Katina Media for the first part of the week, and then hopping a train over to Scotland to check out St. Andrews. Just a bucket list item. Hopefully Tiger makes the cut and I get an early morning breakfast and be able to walk with him on Saturday. But let's get to it here, John. Let's talk about some odds here. Let's break down this tournament. People want to know what we're looking at, what we're looking for, where the value is on this board. So for those that are unfamiliar, just a quick recap. You can find John's preview on the homepage of thelines.com. Right here, the 2022 British Open preview, everything you need to know about the old course at St. Andrews. If for whatever reason you're watching this video closer to the start of the tournament on Thursday and it's not in the top four, you can always go under the odds tab, under golf, under John Hasselbauer, and you'll find the preview for the 150th Open. Top of the board for outrights. John, we have 7 guys who are shorter than 20-1 to start the week here as we record this on Sunday evening East Coast time. So typically we show you the top 5 here at the top of your article, but I'm actually going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here so we can compare odds across all the books to get a bigger look at who the top of the board is, because it's not just Rory McIlroy. He is the only one short of 10-1 at some books here as the clear favorite for the Open, but Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, U.S. Open champion, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Jordan Spieth, a former Open champion, Justin Thomas, 2-time major winner. Every one of those players is shorter than 20-1, and then Colin Morikawa, an Open champion, the defending champion, between 20 and 22-1. The top of the board, you're not exactly getting much value here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the next batch in that 25 range is where I will probably start my card, just because the Open Championship is one of the more random events when it comes to conditions and draws, and I just want to have a little bit more diversified exposure to the field this week, where I don't want to go all in on a Rory or a Justin Thomas and they just so happen to get the bad weather draw on a gusting wind that hits them that we couldn't have anticipated. And all of a sudden, I have no other bullets in the holster for the week. So I see guys who are 25-1 in that next tier that are just as elite right now, just as likely to contend in this tournament, and that is going to give me a little bit more flexibility to have exposure to multiple guys who can contend rather than going all in on one top guy this week.
For sure. Before we get to your card and how it's shaping up in the early stages of the week, and I will again share my full outrights because I'm not going to be able to bet here in the U.S. I'm going to be in the UK. I'm not going to be anywhere near a bricks and mortar retail sportsbook shop. I'm going to be in the Lake District up in the UK. So I got to get my bets in now. So good thing for you guys. You can check out what I'm going to bet at the end of this video after I went through John's preview here and looked at what stats I was considering, crunched the numbers. So I'll give you that in a moment. But John, let's talk big picture here. St. Andrews. What should we know about the old course? What matters here stood out to you in your research? Because yes, this course has been around for 470 years, but it is 7,300 yards long. But there's only so much you can do to a classic to modernize it for today's players.
Correct. So I think it's very helpful that the PGA Tour co-sanctioned the Scottish Open this time around, because that has been a DP World Tour event that's gotten a little less attention from the public eye, especially for those who, like myself, really just stick to the PGA Tour week to week. So that's given us a little bit of a glimpse into what Links course, who fits Links golf in the immediate recent form. What we see in links golf is always an exposure to conditions, being able to flight the ball under the wind mostly, but also being able to use the ground on firm and fast fairways. It opens up to sort of uncertainty on where the ball is going to bounce. If you're using the ground and you want to hit a low stinger, that does very well in links golf, and it actually kind of levels the playing field from a distance standpoint. If you're able to hit it accurately with a low ball flight, it's going to roll out a lot more on a links course than it would on your typical parkland golf course. So you've seen the Zach Johnsons and Louis Oosthuizens of the world contend without elite driving distance on this golf course. However, to your point, the modern game is going to be coming into St. Andrews for really the first time we've seen this much technology behind the game. A lot has changed since 2015. Now there is a legitimate concern of, can this course be bomb and gouged on the shorter par fours? There are 6 holes that seem to be drivable under 400 yards if the wind is not dead in your face. So I think driving distance is going to be key, just because if you have plus driving distance, if you're able to drive it 330 plus, especially in firm conditions, you're going to be generating eagle opportunities now that average to below average drivers are not going to be able to generate. With that said, is this a pure bomb and gouge course? No, there's pot bunkers everywhere. There's fescue. You're going to run into trouble if you spray the ball all around. So it's about taking those calculated risks on a links golf course, knowing when to be aggressive, when to be conservative, when to lay back, which also opens it up to more of like the veterans and the experienced players who've seen St. Andrews in the past or just played links golf in the past. So I'm also looking at Open Championship history, which is always on links courses in the conditions like these, highly exposed to coastal winds. I think that's a starting point. Ideally, you want to see somebody who's had success on the links, but also has that sort of creativity in their bag to pull out all the shots.
So course specs here for St. Andrews. It is a par 72, but only the 2 par 5s and only the 2 par 3s and the 14 par 4s that John mentioned. So it is not your typical par 72 that we see in the United States. The past winners here, Zach Johnson in 2015 at St. Andrews, Louis Oosthuizen in 2010, Tiger Woods a couple of times, and John Daly back in 1995. Also some past winners at St. Andrews at other tournaments that the Alfred Dunhill. Danny Willett has won at St. Andrews, Victor Perez, Lucas, Beharagar. I'm not even going to try. Sorry, bud. I don't even know that one. I know a lot of golfers, but I don't know Lucas Beharagard from 2018. Tyrrell Hatton and Thorborn Olesen in 2015. So Hatton actually won here twice in 2016 and 2017. And you can see the full breakdown of yardages on each hole here. John, one quick follow-up question to what you said. Typically every week we're monitoring the weather for a golf tournament, and sometimes we put a little more emphasis on it. But I think this tournament, the Open, even last week with the Scottish, whenever we're in the UK and we're playing links courses, we have to really monitor the wind. We just saw on Thursday, the first round of the Scottish Open, a 3-stroke difference between the morning and the afternoon waves. So I'm not going to have that luxury, having to make my bets before I go overseas, but I'm assuming that you're going to be watching that pretty closely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even know too at the Renaissance Club. I was getting the enunciation wrong.
If I hear Jim Nance say Renaissance one more time, I don't understand why it's not okay for us to just say Renaissance. Like, we say some words differently than the British. They say some words differently than us. It's okay to say Renaissance. We don't have to say Renaissance. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right. I'll get off my soap. Seriously.
But I think the difference between that course and St. Andrews is there were actually some trees in play there, some obstructions to the wind. Here there's nothing protecting this course from the wind, so a breeze of 5 miles an hour is more significant here. Even if the winds look like they're down, it's still impacting play on such a flat space right on the water than any course that has any sort of tree lines. And we've even seen this at, like, let's use Pebble Beach as an example, which was a coastal major, on the west coast of the United States. That's technically a links course, but half of that course is tree lined. And a lot of the players talked about, it was windy, but the trees kind of blocked it. So it's not the same. If it says it's 20 miles an hour wind, it doesn't really affect you. Not the case here. If there's any wind, it's going to affect the ball. That's why I don't think this is really going to push beyond 20, like well beyond 20 under par, like some people are speculating. I think any degree of wind is going to make this course tough, considering how firm and fast the fairways are going to be, how undulated the greens are, the nuances around them, the presence of pop bunkers that are basically forced bogeys and lateral layups if you find a pop bunker in the fairway. There's a lot of bogeys out here still, regardless if people are going to be driving the green and trying to overpower this course. So I think it's going to be a test. I think we get a high teens winner this week. And again, I'm just really excited to see it play out.
For sure. And I think potentially some live betting opportunities in the outright market. If we see tame conditions theoretically for the morning, we don't know yet. I mean, it's a little early in the week to talk about weather, but if there are tame conditions in the morning and somebody gets out to a pretty low score on day one, we just saw Cameron Tringali get the double digits under par in the Scottish Open, and the winning score was 7 under par, and he folded the minute he had to play in windy conditions. So if somebody gets to the top of the board in tame conditions and the weather is going to change for the rest of the tournament, look for opportunities to take somebody at a price that's longer than what they were pre-tournament, that has some success in windy conditions, that isn't going to struggle in those conditions. You might get a good number to live bet somebody. So let's move on here, John, to the key stats to consider at St. Andrews for the Open. You have listed in your preview par 4 scoring. Not surprised by that. There's 14 of them on this course. Strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained on approach, as we always expect each week. Got to hit your irons well. We saw that with Colin Morikawa winning the Open last year. Driving distance, and then strokes gained around the green for low or light rough. You have kind of a compilation of what you're looking at in terms of putting stats here. Birdies are better gained, as we expect, somewhere, deeper than 10 under par, but maybe not 20 under par. So got to have some birdie opportunities and a couple other things for you to consider here. The question I want to ask you in terms of these stats is, do you think that the Bombers are going to take this course apart and we're going to see a bunch of them at the top of this leaderboard if the wind stays down?
If the wind stays down, which I feel like is a big if, I'm really kind of hedging towards the course will toughen up and we'll see something more of, aligned with what we just saw at the Scottish Open, as opposed to what we saw at last year's Royal St. George's 2021 Open Championship, where it just never showed up. There wasn't any wind, and it was just right for the taking. But if there's no conditions, yes, the Bombers will tear this apart. I want exposure to longer hitters who are going to give themselves eagle two-putt birdie opportunities on many of the short par fours and the two par fives. That's definitely, if they're playing in calm conditions, that's what makes Rory the prohibitive favorite this week. They're going to be able to reach these greens, and that's going to be a problem that Kevin Kisner is not going to have that luxury. He's going to have to hit a great drive and a great approach shot to generate birdie opportunities, and he's not really going to have the eagle looks that these longer hitters have. So that's very important this week. But it's more of these like nuanced around the green short game areas that I'm looking a little bit more in, because I know regardless if we have calm or nasty conditions, you're going to have to scramble. The greens are massive. There's undulations that are going to roll you off. You're going to have creative shot making. And you're going to have creativity in your game. So that's why I want to look at courses that like don't have a ton of rough around the green, tight lies, people who are able to use that Texas wedge or just, be creative where they have a number of different shots they can go to. That's always proven to be a good indicator at the Open. And 3-putt avoidance is really just a lag putting stat, but you're going to have a lot of putts from over 30 feet. You need to 2-putt from those distances to keep yourself alive. A lot of times you're going to have those 2 putts for birdie. So 3-putt avoidance might actually even be sort of a scoring stat this week, where you're putting from off the green, or you're just putting from close to the other hole's green, because a lot of these greens are shared between the 2 holes on the front and back nines.
Okay, so let's wrap up here looking at some early bets for this week. Your player spotlight is on Sam Burns this week. Love the selection. I locked in a 40-1 bet on him to win this tournament about 2 weeks ago. It just didn't make sense to me. Some of the names that were above him in that 25 to 40-1 range, I thought Sam Burns was a great value at 40-1. So as we scroll down here, let's see where he's at right now on Sunday. So 35-1 is the best price there. I still think that's a fair price on Sam Burns. I would add him to my card at that price. Outside of that, your top 10 in your model this week. Let's see here. I believe Justin Thomas was at the top of your list, right? And then just give us a couple thoughts on some of the other names that popped for you in your top 10.
Yeah, Justin Thomas actually becoming an interesting consideration. I'd see him as long as 19
He's dropping a little,
which is longer odds than Jordan Spieth. Justin Thomas is a major champion this year, fits this course just as well as Jordan Spieth would. They have the same sort of game. So that is becoming a little appealing. If Justin Thomas touches 20-1, which I can't imagine he would, that I think is something that I'd have to pull the trigger on, just given the fit. And he's a bomber who can reach these greens as well. But Tony Finau was right up there with him at number 2. He really caught my eye. He was basically a co-spotlight of mine with Sam Burns. Or I just see a lot of correlation between Open links success and desert golf. And Tony Finau is automatic on desert courses. He's always contending, whether it's the waste, he's contended at the Waste Management. He has put up strong results at the Saudi International, which is in desert conditions, and he plays out of Silverleaf, which is in the desert where he gets all his practice in. So just firm rollout conditions where it's important to just position yourself, but also have that added distance and play in some random winds. Just broad characteristics I think can translate to the Open. And we've seen Tony right there in contention at each of the Opens, throughout his career. So he'll be on my card. I see him as long as 50-1 right now. I'm curious if that does slip any longer, but 50 is a really good number. And if it doesn't slip any further, I'll still probably pull the trigger on that for my card.
I would, considering there are 3 books still at 50-1, I would wait to see if this slips a little bit. I have a hunch that it will slip a little bit. And if 2 of the books start going the other way, you're still going to have a third to go back and get your 50. So I think it's a low risk, high reward situation to wait and see if Finau's going to slip a little bit. Could not agree with you more on Justin Thomas. I mean, we get into the 20s on Justin Thomas. That's almost an auto bet for me. we saw how creative he can be in tough conditions at the PGA Championship. There was no question he was on the wrong side of the draw of that tournament and still just plugged away and gritted his way to winning that tournament. Obviously, heartbreak for me to a prayer on the last hole. But Justin Thomas was about the only guy even in contention who was on the wrong side of the wave. So we know that he's got the length to contend here if it is tamer. And if it gets windy, I like him even more. So that's kind of where I'm sitting here. So here's where I'm at, John, with my outright card as I head overseas here to the UK. Got to lock him in here. I did start with Justin Thomas at 19-1. Went with Sam Burns on that futures bet at 40-1. It's more of a FOMO bet, but I saw a Louis Oosthuizen, I think, at 50-1. Guys won here, and the other time that the Open was here, he was in a playoff. So the form stinks. He's down to 40 now. I wouldn't bet him at 40, to be honest with you. If you can get a 50 on Louis, I'd consider it. But before I move on to the rest of the card, I mean, if there's one horse for the course guy for this tournament, it's Louis, right? Because of the past champion, lost in a playoff, but admittedly, the form has sucked.
Yeah, I'd even go as far as to say, look at the last Open Championship, and he was right there in contention too. I had a ticket on him last year. His form was much better. He was a contender in each of the majors, really, in 2021. So it's tough to tell what the form is on the Live Tour. I don't really know what stock to put behind it, but on the PGA Tour before that, it wasn't looking great. But yeah, this is a course where it's a strategist course. You kind of just go into that memory bank, put those shots together that you've hit in the past and try to rechannel it. It suits Louis' game. So it's a roll of the dice, but if he has found that form and he rekindles something on these grounds, you're going to look pretty smart for it.
Gun to your head, Louis with the horse for the course angle, or Victor Hovland, whose number keeps slipping and played like crap at the Scottish Open because they lost his clubs in transit.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy low on that narrative that if he actually has his clubs, that he might have a better result. I jotted down Victor as a number to watch. I see some books have him at 28, who probably just ignored what happened this most recent week. I see him as long as 41. I still need him to keep slipping because he really has not looked like that ball striking wizard that we know him to be for the last couple months. So I would probably lean Louis, but both of them have a little concerning course history at the moment, or sorry, recent form at the moment.
All right, rest of my card. Tony Finau, 50-1, but I had to lock it in, but I'm telling you guys, you should wait. I think we're going to get a better number than 50-1. I bet Max Homa a couple weeks ago at 100-1, John. And I think of all the players on the board, that's the number I might like the best. The guy loves links golf, respectable performance at the Scottish Open. Actually went out and played another course that was like on his bucket list in the middle of playing the Scottish Open one night. So he played 5 rounds of links golf in the UK this week. And if you look at just, take away the stats that you talked about, just the overall strokes gain data, him and Sam Burns are right up there with the elite players at the top of this board, but we're getting incredible numbers on Burns and even better on Homa.
Yeah, I'm with you on Homa. I got a 90 on him, so we're right in that same wheelhouse. I think he's as long as 70 still, which is still good value to me. If you're still considering, I think 70 is still worth
anything
the price.
Longer than 50, I'd play Homa.
Yeah, he just fits the eye test of someone who's hitting these like low laser 300 plus yard drives. That's going to do really well in these conditions, and it's going to help him drive the green. With some of the rest of the bombers, he's kind of an underrated bomber, but he gets it out there. He was, he was amongst the top of the field in driving distance at TPC Potomac when he got his last win at the Wells Fargo. So I think he's a really good fit. It's his first time playing, a professional tournament at St. Andrews. I'm not sure how much experience he's had in his personal life coming here at his public course. So who knows? Maybe he has dabbled around here, but it's definitely a good fit on paper.
For sure. And last two considerations, Cameron Young, I'm going back to the well on him, just drives the ball so well, not only with a ton of distance, but pretty darn accurate as well at 100-1. We're seeing as short as 60-1 on him. So a couple books being defensive on Cam Young, considering his length off the tee. I know he's never won. He's a rookie, but I love his length at this course. And lastly, I tailed one of yours from a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to let you talk about him. Victor Perez, John. Tell us about Victor Perez as we wrap up.
Yeah, a bit of an ugly showing this most recent week, but it seems like his number is still shorter now than when we picked it up at 150. The week after he won on the DP World Tour, so within his last 5 starts, he's got a win, and then he followed that up with a top 3. Frenchman, but moved to Scotland within the same county as St. Andrews, so he knows this course extremely well, loves links golf, moved to Scotland for that reason, to tune up and play it more regularly. And he's won the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, which has 2 of its 4 rotating rounds at St. Andrews. So, he knows the course, he can navigate it well. He's a very good approach player, pretty accurate driver. Short game's a little volatile. That kind of did him in at the Scottish Open. He got, victimized by a couple pop bunkers and put some crooked numbers up that I am also familiar with. A few snowmen as of today with my golf results. So we share that in common. Hopefully our scorecards don't look the same next week, because I do like his fit for this course.
You know what I figured out, John? We just need to play match play. We kick everybody's butt in match play, because then the snowman only costs us 1 hole as opposed to like 5 strokes for the round. And we'll just, we'll take everybody's money.
Match play, scramble, just throw my OB drives out of the window. And I think I'm a pretty decent teammate otherwise.
Good stuff, man. Thank you for joining us as always. For everybody else out there, let us know who you think is going to win in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll have more St. Andrews coverage for you this week for the 150th Open. And it's not up yet, but go to play.thelines.com and you can check out our daily free contests. We will have one for the 150th Open later this week. So be sure to check back closer to, Wednesday. It'll definitely be up there. You can play, try and win some free Amazon gift cards by making correct selections and predictions for the 150th Open. But for John Hasselbauer, I'm Steven Andress. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the final major of the year. Go Sam Burns, go Justin Thomas, and I will be drinking lots of scotch in Scotland if one of these outrights hits. Thanks, everybody.